Good afternoon. Before I begin, I just want to take the time for, because of mandate from higher parental authority, I've been told to say hello to my mother online. And I also, on behalf of all the students, I just wanted to thank the ACM staff and supporters, because without you guys, you're really the unsung heroes of this program, and all the things that we do are occurring because of the hours that we don't see from you all. So thank you very much. And so without further ado, I will begin. First, I'll say that similar to President Welna, that I am also a serial traveler, and I've participated in 3 study abroad programs as a result of ACM Florence, and this fall I've been accepted into a post-baccalaureate program back in Florence for painting and drawing, so I just can't get enough of it. And the purpose of this presentation is to talk about a story that I've been making, and I made a prototype book of a story of how I met a relative in Italy. And I have this book, which is a prototype. I have this book, which is a finalized letterpress book, if somebody would like to know about what letterpress is like versus other books, I guess just asked during the questioning series. And so I wanted to talk about how during the fall break I went to a number of towns with another student from our program in the south of Italy, including Reggio di Calabria, which is where my mother's family is from. But I concluded the trip with a visit to Bugnara, which is in Abruzzo. It's east of Rome. And it's a small little town of about 900 people, and roughly 20 families still carry the name Di Tommaso, which is my family's surname. Because in 1911, Agostino Di Tommaso, my great-grandfather, he came over to Italy on a boat by himself. His dad put him on there. He met his uncle in New York City, and he's the only one from my family to have returned to Italy since his arrival in the United States. And I was now trying to reconnect with the city. And so I got into the city with this other student on a Saturday evening and started walking through the town. And I started just asking people about my story and if they knew any families with the name Di Tommaso. And I would encounter some people that they'd heard the name, but they weren't really sure. And my travels made my way to a little bar cafe in the center of the town. It was the only one in the town. And there were some gentlemen there that, after some discussion, they took me to a house of a man named Cesario Di Tommaso, and he's the oldest Di Tommaso in Bugnara. And I got to talking to him, and he was continually asking, "Are you sure it's Agostino? Are you sure it's Agostino?" Because he was confident that he would have went to grade school with him. And so he couldn't help me, but at that point they did help us find some lodging, because we entered the town not knowing anybody. We didn't know if we were going to have a place to sleep. We just had my story and our backpacks. So we found a place to lodge, and in the morning I got up and I started walking back into the town, and I went back up this kind of cobbled stairway towards the little bar cafe, and found the same people from the night before and asked them the same thing. Do you know if there's any new information? And there wasn't. But so I continued walking around and just kind of looking around, and eventually I made my way to a woman named Maria. That the reason I found her was because there was a woman on the balcony that I asked her the question, and she went, "Maria!" And it went telephone line down the balconies, and there was like, "Maria, Maria, Maria, Maria." And then they started communicating that way, and she sent me to her house. And this woman thought that she had found a relative. She thought that she had found someone named Vittorio Di Tommaso, whose family came over in the 20s, and that it's not uncommon for one to come, and then another to come, and another to come. But alas, that was not the case. It was just another Di Tommaso in the town. And so at that point, I found this little piazza that had an outlook of the whole mountain valley. It's in the middle of the mountains in the middle of Italy. And I just kind of sat there for a little bit and started thinking about things. And it occurred to me that although I might not find my family, I could still leave a mark, and that I've become a part of the history of this town. So what I did is I took out some paper from a notebook that I had, and I wrote 2 identical notes saying who I was, how long I'd been in Italy, why I was there, and if anybody had any information, I have contact information. You can mail me, email me something. And I took the other one to the bar cafe, and I dropped it off there, and was about on my way to just kind of settle down and get a sense of the town and go home. And at that moment, it occurred to me that I hadn't taken any photographs with anyone. And so I took some photographs with the gentleman that started helping out with me. And after a while, they said, well, did you meet Maria? And I thought I might have, but I wasn't sure. So I went with them, and sure enough, it was the same Maria. And they were just getting out of church. And they started this whole discussion again. And after a while, they said, well, did you meet Rita? And I didn't think I'd met Rita. And so Maria took me to Rita's house. And as we got up, there was a car pulling up with a trailer attached to it. And the gentleman getting out just so happened to be my relative's husband and their grandson. And so they got to talking, and they asked me, well, is your great-grandmother Angelina? And I wasn't sure what was going on because I'd never really met my great-grandmother, but I always knew her as Great-Grandma Angie. And so I thought that it could have been so. And he put me in his car, and we started going down the hill. And we drove all the way down the hill, the very first house on the town. There's like a road that goes up to the town, and the journey that took me up the hill took me right back down the hill. And as we were going down the hill, he would point to some houses, and he would say, you know, those two houses, your great-grandfather's brothers lived in those houses. And so at that point, I started getting really excited. And we pulled up to this house that it was the very first house there. Had a beautiful garden. They were getting ready to make wine in their garage. They had a little cantina there, and a wall of pasta sauce, a wall of homemade wine. And he went in the house, and he came out with this woman, and he was just rapidly shooting off information to her. And then before you know it, she just grabbed me. She didn't say a word. She just grabbed me, and she just really looked at me. And she kind of gave me a good look over for a long time. And then she just started shouting out names. And she said, Decky, Velma, Dorothea, Ronnie. And at that point, I was like, I got to make a phone call. And so I called back home. It was about 4 in the morning at home. The parents at home know this. And I asked my dad, who are your grandfather's brothers and sisters? Because I knew he had an Uncle Dick. He goes, well, it's my Uncle Dick, my Aunt Velma, my Aunt Dorothy, my dad Ron, you know, Uncle Bill, and so it's all the same people. So I said, well, I found a relative, so I got to give you a call back later. So hung up with them, and then we started explaining to each other who we were and how we'd come to be. And this is the family. The woman right next to me is Alita, and that's her sister, her daughter, her son, and then her husband and granddaughter. And we went in the house and started talking for a while, and they were just feeding me and all sorts of things, and we talked for a while, and they wanted me to stay for dinner, but I had to catch a train for class the next day. I went in, and for 24 hours I made this excursion and found family, and so they said, well, you know, next time you come into town, we're going to have dinner. And as we were parting ways, I was getting ready to leave, and she turned to me and she goes, I want to tell you one more thing, that when you're leaving on the train, before you hit the first stop, you need to look out to your right, and there's a house on the hill, and that house is where Augustino lived. That's his home. And so she gave me a sack of food and some water and things. I think she gave me a beer with the train ride, and she wished me farewell. We still keep in contact and write today, but as we were leaving, I caught a picture of this, and so I know that I have a home in Italy, I have family in Italy, and sometime in the future I have a spaghetti dinner. So, thank you.